Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This is our new segment called 10 Parsecs. The new format that we're doing where we're going to be covering 3 topics, some current, some not so current, but come right back and check out how it all goes down. All right.
We all know around here, Solo always does shots first. Singing your no, raise your glass, and sing your no. Sing it with me, your no.
We got the moves.
Yeah, that's Bruce right and
Cantina Club.
Exactly.
Miyagi Do, dancing champion. Wax on, wax off.
Okay, subtext aside, we're going to get into our latest episode. Yeah, exactly. So before we get into our 3 topics, we're going to start out like we do sometimes with an unboxing where we just show basically whatever new merchandise that we've got if we pick anything up since last time we recorded. Greedo, why don't you lead us off this week?
Okay, well, first off, I got in some things from the Celebration store, 2020 Celebration store celebration that was canceled in Anaheim, but the store was open, for, I don't know, about 6 weeks or something for pre-orders and things like that. And I thought this was very cool.
That's awesome.
Very
I love
cool.
it.
Very cool.
Very cool.
This is
awesome.
I don't know what it's made out of, but it's a metal. It's really
Mm-hmm.
heavy, and it's a ginormous pen. It's got like 3 or 4 pins on the back.
Oh wow! Okay.
I love this logo. I think,
that is.
it's not the one on the hat, but they have it on branded on a lot of stuff. And
I've got a few things that have that on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Including like there's a calendar with this on it and everything. Anyway, and only 1,980 were made, 1980.
Well, 1980. Yeah.
So anyway, I got one of them.
Okay. Very cool.
I went back and tried to think about getting a few more things, and the store was already shut down. So,
okay.
So do you have something you want me to go on to my next thing? I just have 2 things.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go and let's see.
I've been meaning to show this for a while now. It's the Boba Fett Black Series helmet.
Oh wow! Yeah, that is incredible.
Got it pretty recently.
Man, that looks super authentic. I love it.
Well, yeah, as far as the Black Series helmet goes.
I mean, I know it's not like
really
one of the
nice,
hard, metal like that they would wear in the movie, but
no, but the paint job's
but I'm
pretty
talking
good
about the
on
markings just look really
it's
really accurate.
Very solid.
Yeah.
And the worn nature, which of course,
look, yeah.
Boba Fett instantly repainted his as soon as this came out. So there's a shot of the inside.
Oh,
and
very cool. Nice.
like we were talking about before, there's the Mando Vision.
Yeah, Mando Vision.
Boba Vision.
Boba Vision. Very cool. Oh, I love it.
Oh, and the viewfinder is actually got an electronic screen on it. If you put the batteries in, it lights up.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
I haven't done it yet, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, those are very cool. Awesome. All right, I've got a couple of. Again, I know I've made the joke before. I it's almost like I need to go to Star Wars T-shirts Anonymous. Hi, my name's Alan. I have a Star Wars T-shirt problem. Well, I now have 2 more.
So, 2 more. You double down.
Yeah, double down. So speaking of the logo, the Empire Strikes Back. This is also from the Celebration store.
Oh, sweet!
And it's like action figures and adventure sets. Yeah. There you go. So that was kind of cool and unique looking. I enjoyed that. All right, so that's one of them, and then the other one, I believe this is from China. I'm not sure which country, but I believe it is.
Oh yeah. Nice. I like that.
I thought that was really cool. I love that. I love all the Asian artwork. So yeah, so those are the 2, and those were both also from the Celebration store. So yeah, I'm very happy about those.
Very nice. Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So, all right. So next, we're going to jump into our recommendations segment, which we call, of course, Cloud City or Rancor Pit. And then this week, I'm going to go last because I went first last week. So, what do you got for us, Greedo?
Well, let's see. I'm going to
And just I didn't really explain it, just since this is new. This is just a segment where we're recommending or not recommending, as it were, a show that we're currently watching or have watched in the past, and it can be a new show, current show, old show, whatever. Just something that we think you might want to check out, or something we're trying to warn you to avoid.
Right.
Just based on our opinions, but of course, decide for yourself.
And depending on your personal preference, Cloud City or Rancor Pit.
Right, exactly. Cloud City's the good.
Cloud City's above, Rancor Pit's below. You may like being in the Rancor Pit. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure certain people enjoy that. But yeah, I'm going with a Cloud City this time. And I'm going to recommend the series Warrior on HBO Max. This is my second episode in a row with an HBO Max series.
Yeah.
But it is a kind of a fun series if you're into Bruce Lee or Jet Li or any Lee.
Or any Lee.
And it's kind of a cross between the original Kung Fu series concept and almost like takes place, you would expect almost a sequel to the Kung Fu series, because it's after the railroad has been built to California, the railroad line and everything. And it takes place in San Francisco, and it follows a Chinese immigrant who comes over looking for a family member. And it pretty much is just stylized, cross of Kung Fu movies, the kind of Bruce Lee stuff, and spaghetti westerns, I guess.
I was gonna say it must have an Old West flair to it.
Yeah, and then it also brings in some almost like BBC production stuff. Like there's drawing room scenes, there's almost Victorian type conversations, and there's a huge cast, a lot of variety of characters. The sets are really great. The fight choreography is really great. It is really if you just take it as a fun show. It has 2 seasons and I believe 10 episodes per season. It really does deliver on that. The first episode you have to stick with it a little bit, because it comes out and hammers that premise of almost like the Kung Fu sequel premise, but then it expands after that first episode and begins to incorporate more characters and everything. And I found it a lot more interesting after that. But if you're like me and you like Chinese cinema and Hong Kong, films and things like that, John Woo, all that stuff, then you will probably like the show. It's got a very, good quality to it. Decent writing, and it's fun, and you just can't take it too seriously.
And that's relatively new show, correct?
I really don't know. Didn't do my research when it came out, but it looked new. But I think it was on Cinemax before Cinemax and HBO merged and all that, because it still has the Cinemax logo.
Okay.
Yeah, I and I don't know. I haven't looked to see if there's going to be a season 3 or anything, but they left it open for that.
Okay.
So, but it's a show with a lot of extras, and it's one of the impressive things about it. They recreate Chinatown in San Francisco and parts of San Francisco with a lot of people. And with COVID and everything, that's become a lot more restrictive. So that may have put, a halt on some of those things. But pretty impressive show for just to have a good time with, and to kind of follow that action and a little bit of melodrama and soap opera as well. So
excellent.
Give it a recommendation.
All right. Yeah, that sounds like a good one. Okay, so I've also got a Cloud City this week. So we've got 2 thumbs up this week.
Good.
For me, it's actually, this is a show I've had kind of on my radar for a few years. It's not a show that's making new episodes anymore. It ran from 2010 to 2015, and I actually started watching it, even though, like I said, for years it's been on my radar. But I actually started watching it because of a recommendation from Greedo, who mentioned it recently in conversation, and that's Justified. With Timothy Oliphant. Yeah, really good show. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Of course, obviously, we know now Timothy Oliphant has a Star Wars connection thanks to the first episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. But he and he's also, of course, I knew him, the most from Deadwood, one of my another one of my all-time favorite series from HBO from back around the early to mid 2000s. So anyway, basically it's just a show. It's actually, he plays almost like a modern version of his Deadwood character, basically. He plays a U.S. Marshal. It takes place in modern day in Kentucky. kind of rural Kentucky where it's just a lot of a lot of like a lot of drug smuggling and shady dealings going on with the locals, and he's just basically the U.S. Marshal that actually originally grew up there and has recently come back to kind of work with the martial office there to kind of clean up the area. And it's just basically it's really good. Like most shows, I think it takes a while to really get going. I noticed the first, I'd say 4 to 5 episodes were good, but I was like, okay, it's okay, it's all right. But once you could tell it hit its stride around the 6th or 7th episode of the first season. You could tell that like the actors started to get a better grasp on their characters, and the writers got a better idea of exactly what the characters were going to be like, and the interactions got better, the chemistry got better. I felt a real spike in the quality of the show, and it's continued all the way now through. I'm right almost at the end of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's continuing to keep the high quality story wise and quality wise, and it's actually, I really like the writing, because I mean, not that many shows, I guess, especially shows that aren't out and out comedies, don't really make me laugh out loud that much, but this one really has.
This one does, yeah.
I mean, it really has gotten to the point to where every episode there's at least 1 or 2 moments where the writing is witty enough to where I actually like laugh out loud at a couple of moments. So
yeah,
it's a good show. I definitely recommend it. I mean, Timothy Olyphant, just if you haven't seen him, do yourself a favor and watch something that he's in, whether it's this or Deadwood or whatever. But
and one of the great things about really Justified is the entire cast is so great.
Yeah, the whole cast
and they keep
phenomenal.
Adding, as the show goes on, they keep adding more and more people that are really well cast, that really do a great job. And it's a character driven show more than a plot.
It really is.
Show.
Yeah, much more so than plot driven. That's really that's what kind of keeps you going back episode after episode. You're curious about what's happening with that character as opposed to what's going on with this storyline. Yeah,
like a lot of good shows like that, it does have storylines that build and get more intricate as it goes along.
Yeah, it's not an episodic show.
Yeah,
it's
it starts off as a character driven show and continues with that. And one of the reasons it starts kind of slow is because they have to introduce all these characters that form the basis of everything for you to get started in, and you're also kind of put in the middle of their story. They're all not necessarily middle-aged, but older characters and stuff. It's not like a 90210 or something like First Day of High School. Exactly. So you're put right in the middle of a lot of things you have to learn about and everything.
All right, so that's our 2 recommendations this week. That's the first time we've had double recommendations, but we'll be back, I'm sure, next week for 2 more. But definitely enjoy both of those shows. I haven't checked out Warrior, but I definitely plan to, because it sounds like it would be something that would be right up my alley.
I've seen them both, and I would recommend Justified over Warrior, because it's just Justified is one of those shows that comes along once every blue moon. That's just really terrific. Yeah. But they're totally different. Justified's a much deeper dive. If you want to get into it, I think it has more seasons, more episodes.
Yeah, it has. It ran for 6 seasons, exactly 13 episodes a season. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like 78 episodes or something like that total. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we're going to jump now into 10 Parsecs, the new format that we've got, where we basically take 3 topics and discuss those. I actually set my alarm over here, and we discuss them for 10 minutes. And when the time is up, we stop. So this week's 3 topics are going to be, first, we're going to talk about fan service, yay or nay, and kind of what does that mean to us, how that affects us, if we do or don't like it. Another topic we're going to discuss, at least somewhat, we're going to get into the latest controversy, as it were. Not that we're a controversial podcast, but we're going to talk about some things. We are going to talk about the Gina Carano situation that just went down last week. And then lastly, we're going to discuss, do we prefer mystery or backstory when it comes to characters? Okay. Do we like the fact that they go back and tell backstories on all these characters so that we know every little bit of minutia about them, or do we just kind of like having that sort of left to our own imaginations? All right. So we're going to get into the first one about fan service. If you are ready, Greedo.
Sure.
Okay. And we're on the clock. So fan service. Tell us how you define fan service.
Well, if you look up the definition of fan service, which I did before we did this, it comes from references to anime and anime fans, and manga and anime fans from Japan, and it refers really to sexual titillation of the viewers by throwing in a completely gratuitous and unnecessary, like armor bikini and girls, high school girl getting out of the shower, the short skirts being blown up by the wind, whatever.
Blown up by the wind, yeah.
Anything that makes an anime character's nosebleed is probably fan service. It's the episodes where they all like, oh, we're all going to the beach this week or whatever, and they're all. It's like first off, you have to derive some kind of sexual gratification from cartoons to begin with this to be useful. But I don't think of for our discussion, fan service, has gone on beyond that to mean anytime that they're putting something that could be gratuitous simply to please the fans and try to win them over.
Okay,
and kind of falling back on something easy and familiar. And it is also linked a lot with nostalgia with people like us because it's references to the original trilogy, to things we grew up with. So yeah, that's sort of the definition of it.
So basically, a real prime example of that would be, honestly, I love it. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but The Mandalorian is a prime example of that.
Oh yeah,
tons of time. I mean, it's just fan service after fan service, depending on, again, I know that sometimes fan service kind of takes on an automatically derogatory term, becomes a derogatory term, a pejorative term in a way, but it's
because it can be equated with laziness.
Exactly. And it's like, oh, they're just taking the easy way out and giving us something they know you'll love, so you can't, criticize it.
You give fan service, you're going to get a lot of good reviews right out of the gate from people who are easily pleased, and want to see what they've seen before.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing. So the cynical part of me is against it because it is lazy and easy. But if I was in charge of the Mandalorian scripts, the Mandalorian goes so far with it that I almost feel like they have script doctors that punch up the humor, that punch up things like that. I almost feel like they have a fan service script doctor who goes back and says, wait, you missed an opportunity to drop something here, and it really is deep. I mean, it's, you can call it Easter eggs because it crosses that. But the Mandalorian just, season 2, I think a lot of people felt like was even worse as far as being, because you have major characters.
I definitely agree that it was worse. Yeah, about that stuff.
Yeah,
but again, I loved it. So I mean, as far as to answer the question, what does it mean to me? Again, I'm not saying across the board every single time it happens I think it's amazing, but predominantly I prefer it. Predominantly I do like that stuff. I love the throwbacks and the references and all that kind of stuff, but I do think they can go too far sometimes, and I think they have gone too far on a couple of occasions.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The stormtroopers all saying the same phrases from the original.
Thank you. That's exactly the one I was going to. That's the one I pointed out before. Is that?
What do you think of that?
Oh, yeah. It's like it was cute when it started,
right?
And then after
one time would have been good.
After like 7 episodes of them only repeating lines that were said in the original trilogy, it's like, do they not say any of that? They're not robots. They're not pre-programmed to just say these little dialogue, cues. It's like, come on. It's like they I like it better if they would just say new things, because it just rounds out the characters of stormtroopers even better. I don't just want to hear close the blast doors, every single time I see a stormtrooper. I want to hear what's going on right now. So,
now the stormtrooper fan service in Rogue One was awesome, where they were talking about the new model of whatever, and then they get their ass beat by Donnie Yen. That was funny, I thought, because it wasn't overdone. It was one reference.
Exactly. It wasn't every single time.
Too much of it, and you become known for just playing on that or whatever.
Just playing up to that. Because I mean, it's bad when it gets to the point that every time you see a stormtrooper on screen, you start to cringe, because like, oh, what dialogue are they going to recycle this
please
time?
Don't say anything.
Yeah, just don't talk.
Don't talk.
We think they may be splitting up. They might be levels 5 and 6 now, sir. It's like,
there they are. Blast them.
Yeah. Load your weapons.
Load your weapons.
It's like, okay, how many times can we say the same thing over and over again? Anyway, that's just an example of fan service that I do not like.
But then things like the Slave One, showing up, or Boba Fett being used again, which is going to cross over into our discussion about mystery and everything.
Sure.
Backstory versus mystery. Fan service when it's just so over the top, like Solo is a great example to me also, and then you can find it in any modern Star Wars. but Solo is a great example because there might be a common link here of Jon Favreau. I don't know. I was thinking of the Rio character when he says, like, "Have you ever been to a Minot roast on whatever Sardinia?"
It's nuts.
It's nuts. I'm telling you, that's and yeah, that kind of it's like
that is literally one of the biggest cringe moments from that.
Yeah, you try
is that line.
It's like, hey, I just was with my buddy Jar Jar this weekend, and he said, it's like you're just instantly putting yourself in that category. But
right,
but yeah, so that kind of stuff is too much, and when we're looking at it, to us, it seems that's easy.
Exactly.
Like you just cut it. You cut it by like 90% and you'd be okay. Whatever. If you have a propensity to write too much fan service, just look at your script and cut like 90% of
cut a bunch of it out. Yep.
Yeah. If it doesn't serve a purpose,
right,
just get rid of it. And the character, the lady engineer on Tatooine, is another great example. She just, more than half the things she says are references to something else that you would, are obvious fan service.
Agreed. Okay, so let's jump to the other side of the coin here. I think, and I'm not necessarily saying that I'm making this argument, but I do think that the argument can be made that, the sequel trilogy, specifically, Force Awakens, that was a complete, attempt to not do fan service.
Oh, really?
They had the greatest opportunities, like we've talked. They had the best opportunity right there to reunite the big three, and they didn't do it. So some people, if had that happen, I'm sure there would have been critics out there who said, "Oh, that's just fan service." Luke, Leia, and Han all in the room together. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't do that, it can be argued, okay, maybe that's an argument more for fan service. Because for me, that would have been great. I know for you as well. That's one probably the biggest miss of the sequel trilogy is that you had the big three together, again, and you didn't even put them together.
Now, if it was going to be the fireside scene from Star Trek V or whatever movie that was, then I'll pass.
Right.
I'm so glad I did not see that.
It all boils down to what, how it's
right.
How it's executed. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think The Force Awakens was full of fan service and but I think a lot of the decisions were as far as the big three and all that was done because they were scared of them taking over their movie. Because they had
they wanted their new characters to shine.
And they literally said, what can we do to Luke Skywalker? Every time we write him in a scene, we feel like all eyes go to him. I want to know what he's doing.
All about him.
And so how can we establish our new characters? So I think they put as much fan service. I mean, the thing was a remake of A New Hope, basically. And Han Solo was the same exact guy that we saw at the beginning of New Hope. It was. And there was a lot of fan service in it. Cantina,
there was. The point I was making was just that particular
they passed on the
biggest one that they could have done. Yeah. To me, that's the most obvious thing that you would do is to put the three of them together, and they didn't even do it. And I know that's a big bone of contention with both of us.
A point to bring up is to have fan service, you have to have fans, right? And you have to have fans who want something. So, whatever you think of The Force Awakens and the fan service kind of thing they did in there, then you go to The Last Jedi, and the fan service in that movie was more like fan service for Kylo Ren or for some of the new characters, and the new characters are new. They haven't established themselves yet enough to have fan service. So, like Kylo Ren shirtless, isn't that fan service for Kylo Ren fans?
You would think.
And for Reylo fans,
something that's brand new, how can it be, like you said, how can it kind of be fan service, really?
Yeah, but it was goofy to the point. Some of it was so extraneous and unneeded that it was to the point of, somebody thought it was the right thing to do as far as, that kind of, somebody wanted to see it, that wrote it and directed it or whatever. But anyway, the rest of that though was trying to be the anti, fan service movie. And that's where you go a bridge too far, because when you don't have the right balance, because it turns so many fans off, you want to see Luke do something with the lightsaber besides toss it over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think we think it's like a seasoning, throw it in when it's right, but less is more. It'll overwhelm the taste of the dish if you put too much of it in there.
Exactly.
It's just supposed to be there for effect, seasoning.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Okay, and so we're wrapped up on that. The timer's up. So next, we're going to move on to basically the Gina Carano situation. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer.
And if you say Luke and the Mandalorian was fan service, I don't care. I loved it.
Oh.
I'll take that all day.
So, okay, so for those of you who've been living under a rock, if you're a Star Wars fan and you're watching this and you don't know about this, then I don't know what to tell you. But Gina Carano, who plays in The Mandalorian, Cara Dune, she was fired this past week by Lucasfilm because of some comments, some controversial Twitter tweets that she made on Twitter.
She left to pursue new opportunities. Isn't that what they call us? That's it.
Right, and so. Anyway, yeah. So basically, what she had made, it's well known that she's a conservative. She was a well-known Trump supporter, unabashedly so. She'd come under heat for that, and in the past few months, and then now she basically was making comments referring to the current political climate, being that at least one version was told that her comments were basically comparing that currently being a Republican is like being a Jew in the Holocaust.
Right.
And, so she was making basically just an historical allusion and things along those lines. And she didn't really, I read the tweets and she didn't really say it that way necessarily, but.
No, I didn't think so either.
I didn't think she quite even made it that obvious. I think that was more paraphrasing on the other people's part.
It was implied, but it was.
Right. Right. So anyway, so they ended up firing her. And I know that there's probably some legalities we don't know about it. I know she's been slapped on the wrist before about this and told not to do it. And, and I'm sure she has, dialogue and language in her contract that supposedly forbids her from engaging this sort of political talk on Twitter, and she does it anyway. So, I'm sure probably all of that sort of combined to cause her to lose her job. But be that as it may, she said some things, whether you think they were taken out of context or not, either way, it doesn't matter now. She lost her job. She will no longer be a part of The Mandalorian.
Or so Star Wars at all.
Or at all.
She could have been on that show, Rangers.
Right. Yeah. She was. Her character was basically going to be a lot, maybe even the main character, Rangers of the New Republic. So then we're going to have that raises another question: are they going to recast, or are they just going to say she's dead? And just go a different route with that character or with that storyline. So what's your initial take on all of this
He's
stuff?
thrown in front of the subway or whatever,
right?
From 3.5 Men. My take on all this is so complicated. It seems so simple, but this is super complicated.
Yeah.
And we can't say enough that we don't usually tackle things like this on our podcast or whatever you want to call this, because we prefer to remain as positive as possible. And I'm very cynical and jaded, so that's hard to do. So I tend to bring things down a lot. So, but we try to stay out of things that are incendiary or that are hot takes. We don't do hot takes.
We don't do hot takes.
It's the most worthless thing ever. I mean, really, it is. People looking for hot takes are just looking for reinforcement of their emotional opinion of the moment or whatever. Right. And we don't usually do that. But this is complicated because you can see it from all sides. And I think it comes down to, in the end, it's going to be a matter of the legality of her contract and what they can fire her for and what they can't. Because I'm always going to side personally with the workers, with the little guy. I'm not saying an actress or actor is the little guy, because they're not, but they don't have power compared to these major corporations.
Right, the corporate executives. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about boatloads of lawyers, endless, against one person who she lost her agency as well. Her agent dropped her.
Yeah, her agent.
She has literally no one representing her right now, as far as I know. Right. So that doesn't strike me as fair, but anyway, it's going to probably come down to the legality, which means lawyers, which means judges, if she decides to sue or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so I don't know the legality of the situation, whether that was justified or not. There's the argument that a private corporation can do as they please, and a lot of these states in the United States are right to work states. You can be fired for any reason. Yeah. And So, but
I live in one of those states.
Yeah, a lot of us do, and we've felt the bite of that many times.
Yep.
But so it comes down to, I guess, what's the backlash on this? Because it's a done deal. Whoever you want to blame, her or them or whatever, it's a done deal. So how do you handle it going forward as a Star Wars fan? And I choose to kind of divorce the politics out of it to a degree, and say, like, how is this affecting the person? How is this affecting what I'm going to see and want to see on screen? Which I'm a huge fan of the character. I love the character.
Love the character.
She's essential to me, to the Mandalorian. So they better knock it out of the park without her there, or I'm gonna, because her and Carl Weathers were in this season a lot less, and the only reason I was okay with that was because I think there's always more coming, and they can't just continually do the same thing over and over. So I thought these characters were going to come back at some point and get more exploration and more things to do. So any case, it comes down to, who are you going to support in this situation, and what do you want to see going forward? And if you're not happy with it, you can always cancel your subscription to Disney Plus. You can use your dollars. You can write a letter.
Vote with your
right.
wallet, as they say.
I don't think hysteria is the answer, though, because
I don't either.
Overwhelmed in hysteria at all fronts right now. Everybody needs to settle down,
of course, obviously, in the immediate 24 hours following this, of course, the big thing was, hashtag cancel Disney Plus, and that was what was trending #1 all over.
And it was hashtag fire Gina Carano before that.
Right, so exactly. It's the typical knee-jerk reaction to this stuff.
We've got people all over the place fighting unfairly, basically, and people saying, "Oh no, don't cancel people, but we're going to cancel you for canceling people."
Right, canceling back and forth.
It's never ending, and I feel like the people that win are the ones stoking the fires of all this, and the ones that make the money off the clicks, and all of that. The ones to whom no disaster is bad news, no publicity is bad publicity, because that's an opportunity for them, And so anyway, if you support, I'm gonna maybe write them a letter or something. Why not? I don't know if it'll do any good, but a lot of the production companies and stuff have become more responsive to fans. Look at The Expanse, look at a lot of shows like that. The Clone Wars coming back because of fan support.
Just because of fan support, exactly.
But I'm crushed. I am crushed.
I am.
I won't lie.
I'm severely disappointed. I love that character, like you were saying. She was, to me, one of the high points of the show. I thought her character was fantastic, and I love the fact that they did utilize her a lot more than I originally thought they were going to. Like you said, Carl Weathers was really only in one episode this season, but yet Gina Carano came back to reprise her character in about 4 episodes. So I really, really enjoyed that, and I'm very disappointed that she's not going to be there moving forward. So do you have a preference to a recast or she died?
No, if they're going to make it permanent, I would almost prefer they write her out for a while in the chance that something could be repaired,
and bring her back.
Because I honestly wish
actually
people would stop listening to this hysteria on all sides and just go,
I agree.
What do we want to do
on each side? Yep.
Yeah, they obviously, she used to be a representative of this show. They had her at the premiere event. They had her on the panel with the creators and everything. They promoted her as one of the faces of this.
Right.
They obviously liked everything about her background, MMA fighting, everything. So I'm not, and I'm not in favor of people losing their jobs over statements and things like that.
No, me neither.
In no way, shape, or form. But she has to decide. I'm all about the personal responsibility aspect. And if she can't work for a corporation that will not let her express herself the way she wants, then there may be no way, around it. Right. But when they kind of, force the issue like this without, I don't know, it just makes you think that the loudest noise gets the attention, and that shouldn't be the way.
It really does. No, and it's sad, but that
should be fair.
It really is.
Be fair.
And just briefly mention, and I think this is fair to mention, I do feel like there can be a double standard, and I've mentioned this before, you get Gina Carano making her political statements and she gets fired, but meanwhile you've got somebody like a Justina Ireland who is writing for Star Wars. and Pedro Pascal as well, making his, people, 78 million Nazis in America comment, nobody bats an eye. And Justina Ireland makes all her racist tweets every single day, about anti-white people this and anti-white people that. Nobody bats an eye or even says, or even shrugs their shoulders about it.
I think some people do bat an eye or shrug their shoulder. Some people
do
vote with their dollars.
The people in power are having a double standard,
you're right.
Because we don't agree with your politics, so you're fired. We agree with their politics, even if it's racist.
But we also don't. We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. So
you're right.
Discussions like certain people might respond to, hey, cool it, slow it down a little bit, and others are not. And Gina in particular baits people a lot, or she was baiting people a lot, like responding to people directly, kind of taunting, saying, come on Twitter, I can do this all day, that kind of stuff, and being kind of counter in that regard to what they want her personality
too,
to do.
If you think about it,
she's a fighter.
That's what she does. Come on, is that all you got? Let's go. Yeah,
I got the impression from reading her stuff that she wanted somebody to acknowledge what she went through, saying that what was done to her was unfair, even though she was supposed to move on past it, and if she had just been silent, it would have blown over, I think. But she wanted people to acknowledge all the stuff she'd been through, and she was still feeling hurt about it or angry or whatever, wanting to make a point. And
all right, well, we're well over time. So
are we? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. we probably ran a couple of minutes over there. But
it's a tragedy and a disaster.
It is. It's absolutely a tragedy.
It is. It sucks.
All right. So I don't
know her personally.
Our third and final topic for this episode is basically: do we prefer backstory or mystery? What's better? Do we want to know every little bit of minutia about a character, or do we like leaving it up to the imagination? And the clock is starting now. So lead us off, Greedo. What do you think? I know I have some pretty strong views on this, but what do you think?
Well, I think the reason this is an interesting topic for Star Wars is because we have 40 years of Star Wars now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've seen there's no franchise that has been more adept or more willing to take every single creation of the effects or costume shop in the background and flesh them out into a name, a character, have a backstory,
comic book,
comic books, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. Right. Any character you pick out in the background has this long story,
has a long backstory, like you can read their life story.
If you want to know it. The difference is a lot of this stuff is inside media, not necessarily official. You can ignore it. Right. It's when they they explode the mystery on screen for everybody to see and everything, and explore backstory that way,
and makes it absolute canon.
And that kind of thing. Like I remember the Star Wars Marvel comics back in the day. There was a comic that was one of the worst ones ever, where Han went back to Tatooine, and Boba Fett was in a sandcrawler and woke up. Remember?
Oh yeah.
And he woke up and he had amnesia, and he was like, "Oh, I remember you, Solo." And Han's like, "Yeah, we were good friends.
Yeah, we were buddies."
He's lying to. So they work together, and then Boba Fett remembers who he is just as the sandcrawler crashes into the Sarlacc pit again, and he dies again into the Sarlacc. Like, how does a sandcrawler go in the Sarlacc pit? I'll never know.
How does that even go into the Sarlacc pit?
Yeah, and so that kind of backstory or whatever is horrible.
Just dumb.
Yeah, but anyway, we have 40 years of backstories being filled in, mysteries being imploded, things being handed to us that take away from our imagination and our own, ideas that we had about things. So it's good and bad, but a lot of it has been motivated by money. Let's be honest.
No, it really has, yeah.
Merchandise, action figures. But then you have things like the Clone Wars, where backstory makes a huge, tremendous difference to the whole show, because it is done with discernment, with quality. I mean, there are some slapstick moments in Clone Wars that are the tone is set that way, and it's that way. But the backgrounds and things tell a story in there. They're not just in there, necessarily to sell an action figure.
Right, exactly. There's usually a solid reason to have it in there.
But going all the way back to the main linchpin of the whole Star Wars saga, Darth Vader. Darth Vader was nothing but a mystery. you know, at first. We just thought he was a bad guy. We knew he was going to come back. Then it's revealed, you know, he was Obi-Wan's disciple, and we always wanted to know what happened there. But one of the reasons that story was so compelling was because we imagined it for years.
Right.
We didn't get to see it. You know, it wasn't shown to us. And then we find out he's Luke's father. He's Anakin Skywalker by Return of the Jedi. We get a name and everything to go with it. And then you get the prequels coming out, which everyone was so hyped for because this is one of the greatest stories ever in media. But how can it live up to that?
Right.
And definitely after seeing the prequels, I was like, they shouldn't have done it. You know, they should have left Darth Vader where we last saw him and let us imagine the rest, because it just couldn't live up to it. You've also got Boba Fett now. You know, in the prequels, he was explored. The Han Solo movie, they took a character of Solo. You didn't know about his name. You didn't know about his blaster, and they filled in all the blanks, you know. And it's kind of related to that fan service issue. At some point, is there a point to this, or is it just to say, see, we got you. Here's where his blaster came from, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the reason why I don't know if it was last episode or episode before that, the one we talked about where we revisit the films, and why I say that for me, Solo hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
Because I think it's too much of that over explaining of everything that drives me crazy with it. And I know you've got a problem with the dice, and I do too. You know, it's
the dice is one of the worst examples.
Yeah, you know what? They literally like make the dice out to be like the linchpin of all Star Wars or something. You know, it's like Anyway, you know, that's an example. The where he got his blaster, who cares? We don't need to know that. The name, we don't need to know that. Yeah, and that's still one of those cringe moments when I see it on the screen. I'm like, why are they even showing us this? It doesn't matter, you know. And while overall I do like the film, that's the stuff that takes me out of it. And and at that point, it feels like it's fake, if that makes any sense. At that point, it's like, okay, they're not really telling us a story. This is just an excuse to explain things, you know, if that makes any sense.
And it's a cheap way to come up with content. And like, we're going to write a young Solo movie. Well, what can we put in it? Well, we got to explain his name, and you got to show him meeting Chewbacca, and you got to show him getting his blaster.
And you got to show the Kessel
Run. You got to show where the dice come from.
And the Kessel Run, exactly.
Yeah, the Kessel Run must be done. It's like, come on, can you write a story first? Right. And then, you know,
that doesn't have to hit all those points. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that literally makes it a connect the dots story, which is not always the best kind. So
it's another thing that's a fine line. And I always go with, I judge everything individually. So I kind of know a bad idea when I hear one most of the time. So I wonder why some of these people don't, you know, hear it in the pitch or whatever, or in the scripts. But I also know, when I like something, and the general rule for me is just keep it quality. And by quality, you know, a lot of people, we grew up with people that are going, that looks like crap. That looks like crap. It's not good. It's not quality. It really, it has to do with what it looks like.
Yeah, well, they agree because they grew up in the CGI, generation.
Right. It more has to do with the sum of the parts, which you can't always predict. But the first thing you got to do is have a good story and good writing and good characters. Then you try to manifest it. And if it looks like crap, at least you have awesome elements trying to hold it together that people will recognize. But something that looks slick, that's just full of this kind of thing, you know, fan service and any old story you could lift from a million novels, you know, genre novels and stuff, and just throw it onto a character and then have great visuals. You know, I'm not that interested in it. So
no, I agree, you know, and so I'll give but I kind of agree with you there. It's like, I'll give my cop-out answer here of if it's done well, I don't mind it. You know?
Exactly.
And that's kind of an after-the-fact answer. I get that, but
we've definitely become more leery, though, because when we were kids, if they said, "Do you want to see Obi-Wan fight Vader?" we'd have been like, "Oh,
100% yes,
of course," you know.
Yeah.
And now that we've seen it, I know you think it's, you know, the number one Star Wars movie with a bullet or whatever, but Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, clearly.
It is the you know.
It's the
Star Wars,
the top of the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, but now that I've seen it, I don't always know. That answer isn't always automatic anymore.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know.
Well, let me bring this up. Let me bring this up. I think this kind of ties together with something we talked about before on a previous episode, where, you know, I think you're very hesitant about having, because of the recasting of Hayden Christensen for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah.
Because I know you were very adamant. It's like, I don't want Vader to be a recurring character in this.
No.
You know, because again, I think that probably boils down to you still want to keep as much mystery as possible about the character of Vader. So yeah,
and that is fan
and I
service
can see that
unless they have a really good reason. Is there a missing
Yeah.
scene? Is there a missing element that we don't know
Mhm.
about that's super compelling, that there is a 100% reason to make that happen? Otherwise, why are you making every single second of Obi-Wan's life about Anakin Vader? You know, like he surely had something else going on that could have been interesting, you know?
Right, exactly. So yeah, I kind of I do agree that I like the mystery around Vader, but at the same time, I'm also kind of, you know, part of me is also the 10-year-old who's like, hey, would you like to see some more Darth Vader stories? Yeah, I'd love it. You know, maybe I'll see some more Vader. You know, so I'm
to me, Boba Fett's the perfect example for me personally of how it's done well, because I always wanted to see more of Boba Fett. I always want to. He wasn't as
very
cool
little
as,
of it in the original trilogy.
Yeah, he wasn't as cool as standing there just looking, you know, and like when he raised his gun in Jabba's palace or whatever, when he shot at Luke, you know, he had some cool moments, but he had all this armor and stuff with gadgets. You know, he's like the bad James Bond of the Star Wars universe. You know, they didn't have the budget to do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you have to be excessive, but I do want to see him throw down some and see why he was famous and see why he was feared. And so I don't necessarily didn't want to see him as a kid, but Clone Wars did a better job of that. You know, the prequels did. They fleshed that out and gave it a reason for it to be there. But yeah, Boba Fett's a great example. I'm not done seeing that character as long as they're going to bring him back. Darth Maul is another example, and you can go all over the place. Was he better as a one shot? I mean, he was in the movie for 5 minutes.
Right.
So I felt very dissatisfied when they killed him off.
Oh, me too. I couldn't believe it when they killed him off.
Yeah. So
because I was approaching that film as like, oh, he's the new Darth Vader, as it were. He's going to be the Darth Vader of this trilogy. He's going to be the big baddie for all 3 films. And then into the first film comes, and boom, he's dead. Like, wait, what? You know, obviously, we found out that he wasn't actually dead, but you know, we thought for all intents and purposes he was dead as far as the trilogy is concerned.
And his origin planet and origin story and his brother and stuff on Clone Wars was a great arc for me. I loved that. So,
I loved all that. That's another thing.
The mystery working. You know,
it's another thing that the Clone Wars got really, really right. So yeah, they did really well. All right, well that's our
just
time
like that. We've made the Kessel Run.
And 10 parsecs, not 12.
Yeah. All right. Take that, Chewbacca.
Exactly.
Whoever's left alive, still alive over there.
Right.
In the Star Wars galaxy.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again this week. Do you have any parting shots, Greedo?
No, it was a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's a lot to kind of pack into one little episode there.
We didn't. I think
we talked about before. Some of these topics could be full episodes.
Yeah, these topics lend themselves to lists. Like I wanted to make a list of fan service, say from one episode of The Mandalorian, and go yay or nay on each one of them. You know, like, do you think this is too much, or is it not? And see where we come out. You know, like, is there way too much, or is there not?
Right.
And kind of, it would be interesting to go forward and take some of the movies and break it down like that. And then the Gina Carano thing is, of course, the biggest story and, you know, news that's happening now, and it's bigger than us. We don't have any influence on it, but we have opinions, and my main opinion is just sadness on it.
Just disappointment.
I woke up at like 3 a.m. the night it happened, and happened to check my phone and saw that headline, and it was just like, what? I mean, we all kind of saw something coming, but it was still just not good.
Gut wrenching.
It's not good. It's not good. Not a good look. And people should get second and third chances. You know, if they haven't committed crimes, that's where I stand. Is make amends. You know, whatever is going on, instead of just turning into an endless war, why don't we make amends at this point? You know, why don't we find an example to start over? I wish we could. Why don't we find people that are capable of starting over and building relationships instead of destroying them? And let's use those people as an example instead of this constant cycle of punishment, you know, retribution, name calling, blaming, and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, perfectly agreed. All right. Well, that's all we've got for this episode. I'm sure we'll be back next week with some more topics. Until then, hit the like button. Click on the notifications so you'll get notified when we post these new episodes, and hit us with some comments. We love talking to you about this stuff. Let us know if you like the format that we're doing now or not. and we'll go from there and suggest other topics that we can talk about, and we'll try and do that as well. All right,
guys. Some more giveaways coming up too. So
yeah, exactly. We just you just recently gave away the original TIE Fighter model,
the vintage. Well, it wasn't the original, but it was
not original, but
collection from the last couple of years. Yeah,
right, like a throwback to the original design. Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna do some more stuff like that coming up. So
excellent. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, guys, and we will see you again soon. So come back and see us.
We all know around here, Solo always does shots first.
How long was that? Or did we the coffee spill?
No, I have no
idea. Sing it with me.
Boy, that Gina Carano topic is amazing.
Oh, it really is.
So easy to go to.
So many directions. Exactly.
But yeah, it's a great show.
Time out. Seriously, time out. I just dropped my coffee and spilled it everywhere.
Oh no! Oh.